Good morning, and we're live. Let's give everybody a few minutes to join us, and we'll jump right into our topic for today. So excited to be with everyone here on our Monday morning. Augment your week. Here live on the Mandino group. Good, we've got some people joining us. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are going to spend our time for the next few weeks talking about how to identify and actually create our dreams. And there are some very basic principles we'll want to put into place so that we can do this effectively. And this morning, as soon as we have everybody start joining us, oh good, they're coming on, here we come. We're going to go into a really tender topic. And I want everybody to have a piece of paper and a pen handy if you can. Just make sure you have, I've got my journal right here with me. If you could have a paper and a pen handy so you can take notes. A couple of things visually I want you to create that'll help us better understand this process. Here we go. And welcome. Thanks everybody for joining us this morning. We got so excited about doing this. For those of you who may not know, I'm Dave Blanchard. I'm Dave of Dave and Paul of Blanchard Leadership. We have been entrusted with the worldwide rights to the training and the speaking and the internet, Mandino, Greatest Salesman, the 10 Scrolls. We are the official Mandino company, and this is Mandino's Facebook page. We are so honored to represent Mandino's principles. Just love Betty. Just keep her in your prayers, everyone. You know, as we all get older, life gets a little tougher, and we want to have her here with us for a long, long time. I was thinking about a hog the other day, and Betty told me a story once. I'll just share it with you while we're waiting for everybody to join us. She said, "You may not know this, Dave, but Og was colorblind." I said, "Really?" She said, "Yes, I used to pack all of his stuff to send him on a trip for his speeches. And I would have the little index cards in the pocket of jacket number 1, with shirt number 1, with pants number 1, and tie number 1, to make sure that he was color coordinated." I thought that was just delightful. She took care of him as she did when he wrote the scrolls all in one night. And she's feeding him coffee in Danish to keep him going all night. And then next morning he collapses and says, "It's done," and it's done. And here we are with this magnificent work. That was the first of several books that he wrote. The Greatest Secret, The Greatest Miracle, 25 million copies of The Greatest Salesman. I was just up early this morning after my workout, working on the script for The Greatest Salesman in the World. The producers asked me to do that. I still am taking a big deep breath each time and working on the opening scene. It's going to be so fun. I went back to it to take it to another level, and just so excited about that particular thing in our lives. Can't wait for that to be finished and for it to go to the next step with directors and actors and all the stuff they do with it. Well, here we go. It's become apparent to me that when I wrote the book, The Observer's Chair, the premise is that when we're sitting in the observer's chair, this is when we're listening to our real voice, our balanced voice. This is when we're confident, and this is when we are compassionate. This is when we're empathetic. This is when we're using our thought processes constructively to get inspired ideas that ignite passion and drive action. This is when we're finding joy in the journey. We just love taking the clay we've been given and creating the most we can with it, and then celebrating and creating and celebrating. And I talked about that chair over there, that chair of our unhealthy habits of thinking. And sometimes we get up out of this chair and go sit over there. And when we do, it's like someone wrapping a chain around us and putting duct tape over our mouth and taking control of our lives. Well, it's just recently that I'm becoming increasingly aware, especially in my own life, and I want you to ponder this with me this morning. Because if we're going to dream and get those inspired ideas that ignite our passion and drive our action, It requires that we're sitting in this chair. You don't get those sitting over there. And I've often said when we sit here, we're having a dialogue with our unhealthy habits of thinking. When we're sitting here, we're having a dialogue with a power greater than ourselves. I call that power God. And we're getting those inspired ideas, intuitive impressions. This is a wonderful conversation. This can be a very frustrating conversation. I want to change this just a little bit to reflect more clearly the way it actually happens in our lives. Far too many of us are actually living in that chair. That is our dominant voice. That's our dominant voice. We have this self-sabotaging internal dialogue that looks over at this voice, our real voice, and occasionally sets it aside to come over here, but this place can be uncomfortable. It doesn't seem like it can last. It's very difficult to stay here. We're struggling, and all of a sudden we slide back over to that other chair. Just be with me this morning. Put a little circle at the bottom of the page and write in it self-sabotaging internal dialogue. Is that your primary chair? Is that where you sit? And you look over here at this chair as if it were someone else. As if it's, well, how could I own that? And the only time we do is something like we hit a deadline, right? And we've got this big task to do. We hit a deadline, and we shut off that noise, and we embrace our natural genius from this chair. And we get down and go, wow, that wasn't so hard. Wow, why'd that take so long? And we go right back over and sit in that chair. Because that's our chair. Anybody here? Just let me know. Is that your chair? Have you been sitting in that chair trying to get into this chair? Is that possible? Because here's one of the most scary pieces of this equation. If that is our dominant voice, if that's where we choose to sit, where we question our worth and our worthiness and our ability and our beliefs and our contribution, we feel less than and not good enough, and we question our ability and we stay in confusion and doubt and inaction, if that is our chair. But this is our true voice. This is our true voice. This is who we really are. Why do we stay there? Why do we stay there? The scary piece? Because if we stay there, we can talk about this as if this is something outside of us. We might even assign, this is scary, this is the next circle on the page, your real voice. This is your natural gifting. This is your natural genius. If we stay there and we don't own this, we assign it to another name or somebody else or a different personality, we don't have to be fully accountable for the magnitude of the gifts that we've been given. Think about this for a moment. If we stay in that chair believing that's who we are, less than, not good enough, not smart enough, not doing enough, wishing that life was easier and less stressful, and we've got all kinds of cortisol coursing through our body, and we're frustrated and overwhelmed and discouraged. And if that is what we believe to be our true self, and this is something else, then one of the reasons why we may not embrace it is that it's more comfortable to play small than it is to own our gifting. Can you imagine when we use the phrase humility? I'm just being humble. No, Sitting in that chair is not being humble. Sitting in that chair is being irresponsible. Can we embrace that? Oh my goodness, I don't want to offend anyone. I'm sitting over there going, oh my goodness, I am being irresponsible. Why do I not want to embrace my natural genius, my natural goodness, and just be that person? Just be that person. Well, it's because we haven't spent very much time here. And when we have, it's taken so much effort. It's hard to sustain. Just be with me for a minute this morning and sit in this chair, the chair of your real voice, of your natural gifting. And let's explore the word humility. Humility, Kevin Hall writes about and aspire, comes from the root word humus, dark, rich soil, in which we're planted in order to grow. When we're embracing our natural genius and gifts, we're not being egotistical. We're finally being available. We're finally teachable. Because one of the characteristics of sitting over there is being in resistance and resentment and rebellion. Here we're open. Show me, teach me. We're sponges. We want to go to the next level in our life. We want to take this gifting and create the most we can with it. Not because we need to be somebody, because that's who we are. And then the conversation shifts. We're open. We're open to inspired ideas. We're willing to act on them as if they're urgent assignments. We find out, in fact, they are inspired. Had you wired to a functional MRI, Craig Case's new book, The Big Idea, we have a gamma spike. Our whole brain lights up. It's incredible. Ignites our passion, drives our action. We learn from our mistakes. We move forward. We are living in our goodness, in our gifting, in our genius. And it is not ego. It is availability. The purpose why we do self-improvement is to live here and to live here more fully. Because when we're here, doors open, the universe opens up, people are put on our path who can serve us, people are put on our path that we can serve. We begin to be active participants in the creative process. And we get excited about taking our gifting and bringing it fully to the service of another person. The word is genuine. Does that sound egotistical? To be genuine. Root word genus, genius. To be humble is to be genuine. It means to bring your natural genius fully to the service of another person. Just be with me for a moment, because one of the great dreams I want you to explore today is what it would be like to live in the observer's chair, fully available, ready to serve, ready to be inspired, ready to inspire, ready to be an active participant in the creative process. Can you imagine? I want you to envision this. Dream this today, and just imagine what it would feel like, and bring that energy into your life today, and see how often you feel that chair wanting to pull you out. Had the most amazing experience on the treadmill this last week. Was having this great workout, listening to this inspiring music, and I could feel the endorphins firing. Oh my goodness. And I was just aware of the fact I was on this treadmill. I was doing this running. I was sweating. My heart rate was at 93% of its maximum. How long could I sustain that? Oh my goodness, it was an enormously powerful feeling. And I had this conversation. It went like this. Help me to root out of my life every unhealthy thought process. I'd invite you to dream about living here. I know that when I choose to, life is really beautiful. Colors are vibrant. Love is tender. Joy inexpressible. So for dreaming, the first dream this week is, what would it be like to live in your gifting, to take your foot off the brake, and to start letting go, hearing those habits of thinking. Because if we're here, we're then prepared to get an idea of why we're really here. What is it that we're to create? What is it that we're to create with this gifting? But we can't talk about creating with the gifting until we own the gifting. This week is all about owning your gifting, sitting in the observer's chair, being your true self, being genuine, living in your genius, bringing it fully to the service of other people. Could we have this week? Read scroll 4. Scroll 4, I'm nature's greatest miracle. It's a flame that burns inside of me, passed down from generations uncounted. It's a constant irritation to my spirit to be better than I am. I will fan these flames of dissatisfaction and proclaim my uniqueness to the world. I'm here for a purpose. I am. Not that dialogue, not that chair, not that person we've been identifying with, our real self. I am here for a purpose. And that purpose is to grow into a mountain, not to shrink to a grain of sand. Henceforth, I will apply all my efforts to become the highest mountain of all. That's not a comparison to anyone else, and I'll make that clear in scroll 8. We're to take our clay, create the most we can with it, because when we're in creation, inspired idea, acting on it, celebrating the creation. This is not hard work. This is create, celebrate. Daily, create, celebrate, create, celebrate. This is joyful. That voice over there wants us to believe it's hard. It's joyful. I'll apply all my efforts to become the highest mountain of all, and I will strain my potential till it cries for mercy. I am nature's greatest miracle. And yes, you are. Now, lastly, if you haven't taken your habit finder to find out what habits of thinking have been imprisoning you there, Og says, I've surrendered my free will to those years of accumulated habits. And the past deeds of my life have already marked out a path which threatens to imprison my future. You stay there, you're imprisoned. You stay there, you play small. It takes more effort to actually stay there than it does to embrace your gifting and to really live. Let's make this choice. So start dreaming here. Start dreaming here. Just envision yourself. What would life be like? How would I treat my best friends, my companion? How would I treat my business associates? How would I talk to my clients and customers? What would be different today? How would I treat my children when I go home? What would be different today? How would I handle all those things I've been putting off for a while? What would be different today if I owned this? And just imagine it. Bring that energy into today. And may this be the very best day of your life. Let's live in our genius. The world needs you to own yours and bring it to the service of others. Thanks, everyone.